Good day, everyone, and welcome to Chop It Up with Attorney Linda Bernard, also Police Commissioner Linda Bernard. Yay, team! I won, I won, I won. And I have all of you to thank for it. My friends here in Detroit, the electorate in Detroit, my friends across the country, and of course, my viewing audience. I really appreciate you. Thank you all. God bless you all. I promise I'll do my best as your newly re-elected police commissioner for District 2 in the city of Detroit. If you need me, you know how to reach me. I'm available really 24/7. Today, I want to talk about a few things, and we have a very distinguished guest. You see this young lady across from me? Don't let that conservative look fool you. She is a badass. That's all I can tell you. When I say you bad, you can believe it. Because I'm bad, and so bad recognizes bad. So therefore, her name is Attorney Vanessa Fluker. She's a distinguished woman who loves her family, loves God, and is also a minister. You'll be very impressed by what she has to say and the things, how we're going to go through this. And I think you'll learn a lot. So, ladies and gentlemen, get your pencils and pens out. We're going to talk principally about housing, but also about the law. She's a super lawyer in the state of Michigan, a super friend, and she actually, to show you how good she is, she's a lawyer's lawyer. She was my lawyer. I hired Vanessa to do some work for me because as much as I don't know as much about real estate and housing as she does. So, when you a doctor's doctor or when you a lawyer's lawyer, then you know that person is bad. So I want to say hello to Attorney Vanessa Fluker from the great city of Highland Park, Michigan. Were you born there?
Actually, I grew up there. Yes, yes, from birth. Yeah.
Okay, where did you go to high school and stuff there? Highland Park is a city, ladies and gentlemen, that's surrounded by the city of Detroit. But for real, all four corners of the city are surrounded by the city, but it's a separate city. And Vanessa can tell you a little bit about Highland Park and about where she went to school there.
Well, I went to school there, obviously, Highland Park High School. 1977 graduate. I was telling my age, but it was a very prosperous city at the time. You had Highland Park High School, Highland Park Community College, where you actually had an opportunity to take college classes while you're in high school. So that was obviously a advantage and a benefit. And despite them struggling,
So you took college courses while you were in high school?
yes, yes.
You are a nerdy nerd, right? A smart girl.
Well, I won't say so much of that. It's just,
Were you an athlete?
Actually, I did play some sports.
What did you play?
I swam and.
Oh, you're a swimmer. Cut through the water. You and my man Phelps. But I think he could outdo you because his feet are almost as long as you. Those feet are like flippers. He wears a size 13 or 14, and I think that's what made him win. What is it, about 40 gold medals in the Olympics? Yeah, he's way up there. So you can swim like him. You were shoom, shoom. Could you do that flip at the end of the pool?
Oh yeah.
Oh really? You can do the flip at the end of the pool. You don't have to hold on, and you can go zoom and go back under. Wow. So you competed?
Very not a little bit, but a little bit. So that's like I said, at that time period, Highland Park was a great place, and we're definitely hopeful that they will, continue to revive. They've had some challenges, obviously, but hopefully they will be able to revive and go back to that.
Okay. Yeah, there are no schools in Highland Park now.
Yes, yes.
It's amazing, ladies. It is the home of Chrysler Corporation, isn't it?
It was there for a very long time.
Yeah.
And then they pulled out, and
it was the number one city in America, Highland Park, Michigan.
Yeah.
Housing and services and everything.
Yes. And now I just find it unbelievable how they did the school system. Obviously, that was during emergency management, which as far as I'm
that was
concerned,
an emergency manager
I
city.
have never seen a city in better shape after that process than prior to getting there. There's always a lot of devastation. You can look at Highland Park, you can look at Benton Harbor, you can look at other cities that have been under emergency management, and none of them have come out.
You want to explain to our audience what emergency management is before we get into the
Sure. Emergency management is when the state comes in and takes over the control of the municipality, city, township, or whatever it may be. They control the resources, quote unquote, to help it to get economically back on track. They have full power to do whatever they deem necessary to do that. which can constitute selling assets, closing things down. I think one of the disservices with Highland Park is that Highland Park has its own water reservoir, its own water supply.
Oh,
But
you do?
management shut it down and
Wow.
started purchasing water from Detroit, and obviously it sat there vacant. And there's some question as to whether it would have been more economically sound to upgrade and keep their own water supply rather than kind of buy outsourced water.
Well, yeah, it's usually generally better to keep your own and not have to go somewhere else
Mm.
to get something. So you were born in Highland Park, educated in Highland Park, and then what'd you do after you finished high school?
Well, I went to college.
Where'd you go?
Actually, Wayne State is my alma mater for my undergrad, master's, and law degree. So,
What? Okay, so you have your undergrad degree was in.
political science.
Oh, I believe that.
Well,
We're
I
gonna
have
get to
actually
that in a
public
minute.
affairs,
And your master's was in.
public policy.
Oh, public. Oh, I believe that. That's what you're an advocate for. And your law degree, you went to law school,
Yeah.
became a licensed lawyer in Michigan.
Yes.
So what did you do when you first became a lawyer?
Well, my mentor and Alice Jennings. I clerk with her, and she's a civil rights attorney. Does a lot of civil rights work, discrimination, employment, also a lot of environmental discrimination, where a lot of people overlook. So when I first graduated from law school, believe it or not, one of my first cases and first areas was child lead poisoning.
Was what?
Child lead poisoning. It was very
Oh,
prevalent
lead poisoning.
in Detroit.
Okay.
Very prevalent in the state, in at least urban areas such as Detroit, Highland Park, Hamtramck. Flint had a high quality, Muskegon,
Okay.
Saginaw. And people sometimes don't understand. Obviously, people are a little more knowledgeable since the water crisis in Flint and the lead contamination there
Mhm.
that brought more things to light. But prior to the Flint water crisis, the primary avenue of children being lead poisoned is through housing. Because and Detroit has extremely old housing stock. And contrary to the popular belief that children have to have some kind of pica syndrome sitting in the corner eating paint chips, that's just untrue. Most of it comes from the dust.
From what?
The dust.
Paint? Dust?
Yes. When you have friction areas such as windows, doors, you're opening and closing, it generates a dust. Children in the air, children touch window sills, and children under the age of 7, their brain is still developing. So they actually absorb 50% more than the average adult, as do pregnant women, which makes them more susceptible to lead poisoning in housing that was, built before 1978, before there were other precautions put in place for the lead poisoning. And obviously it affects the cognitive development as well as, potential physical issues.
This is interesting. So, ladies, if you're pregnant or getting ready to be pregnant, and if you have children under 7, be very careful about their environment because the lead, as I understand it, can make them retarded, make your children retarded.
It can have a very adverse impact.
I mean, that's the
on
wrong word, whatever it is
on
right now.
cognitive development.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, on their cognitive development.
They had to make it longer,
Yeah.
didn't they?
Well,
Right.
because it's different levels. It depends on the level of exposure, things of that nature. And it can have, physical effects. It affects the renal system. And sometimes when I drive through Detroit and I see these dialysis places on
They're
every
everywhere.
other corner
Everywhere.
in Detroit.
Beer,
makes
wine,
me-
lotto, dialysis.
Right,
Beer, wine, lotto,
to,
dialysis.
It's like, okay, this super duper duper high percentage of diabetics. I wonder how much of it is really contributed to lead exposure at a younger age.
I never thought of that, and thank you for advising our audience about that. So you became a civil rights advocate right after law school, and then what?
Well, we did some employment discrimination. I worked for a personal injury firm for about a year or so, and how I really got into housing was not like I woke up one day and said, "Hey, we're going to do housing law." I actually had a client. That was maybe 2007. This is pre-bailout, all that. And they had I believe it was their grandmother, either their godmother or their grandmother, that was a senior citizen. Said, "Can you look at some papers for her? It's just this is kind of crazy." And they brought the papers in. I'll never forget. It was Litton. Litton Loan was which is now a defunct mortgage company, and the home in the Dexter Davison area. But I'm not talking about on the Russell Woods side. I'm talking on the frame home side. And the payment was almost $3,000 a month. And I didn't know what was wrong, but I knew something had to be wrong. I'm like, this is crazy. So myself and my colleague, my law partner Jerry Goldberg, we're going through these papers. We're trying to figure out how did this payment get like that. And that's when we discovered the wonderful world of predatory lending, adjustable rate mortgages, and literally how they had gone through that area with these senior citizens. They owned their homes outright, and they called it equity stripping. They would go through, strip the equity out of these people's homes, okay, with these inflated appraisals. So you have this home, this frame home. Oh, well, you can, one of the more egregious incidents that comes to my mind is a senior, her husband had cancer. They would go through and befriend these people. Like, well, you can pull this money out your home, you can make him more comfortable, you can pay some medical bills, you can do this, this, this. Didn't know it was adjustable rate mortgage because at that time it was very popular to do like the 2-year arms and the 3-year arms.
It takes my see you gotta break this down.
Adjustable
When you
rate
say
mortgage.
equity stripping, adjustable, so my husband's sick, let's say, and I don't have enough money. I don't feel I may need some things like a ramp put on the house and things like that. So I've owned my house for a long time, so I have equity. Is what
Right.
you're saying.
Right.
And then they come in, and instead of saying this frame house, you say it's worth 50,000. They say it's worth 150,000.
Right.
Add 100,000 to the value.
Right.
So I can get you a mortgage for 150,000.
Oh, it gets better than that.
How does it get better than
Because
that?
most of the time, the people were not getting the amount of equity that was in the home. 100,000 might be stripped out the home. They may get 10 or 15, and it's an
Really?
adjustable rate mortgage. So that means that interest rate is going to adjust. So in the example that I was talking about, they had what's called a teaser rate during that time period, 2 years or 3 years or whatever. Teaser rate may be $300 or $400 a month. But we can handle that.
Right.
Then after that 2-year period, it may double or quadruple. Most times we're talking about quadrupling. So you now went from $300 or $400 in that instance. It went from four something to like $1,200, over $1,200 a month for a payment, which was more than the whole monthly income. Because by that point, the husband was deceased, and
By that time, the house is.
the husband had deceased,
Oh.
and we're looking at the payments more than the whole monthly income. And there's nothing to show for all this equity that's been stripped out your house. And so it's not even an option of, okay, I still have a little bit of equity. Maybe I can refinance and get into some type of normal product. And people were just stuck. And that catalyzed the majority of the foreclosures during the foreclosure crisis. And that's how I got involved. 'Cause I'm like, this is just crazy. And I found out that was like very prevalent, very lucrative, because those predatory loans were being, or still are for that matter, bundled up, securitized, and sold in mortgage-backed trusts on Wall Street.
So it's this situation that created the Great Recession of what, 2007, was it?
Actually, it started 7, 8, then you had the big bailout there, and
When was the big bailout?
big bailout was 2008 going into 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
When all these foreclosures were across the country, and all these companies uh, I actually became a victim of that, believe it or not. I mean, because you even as a lawyer, you think you know the law, and you're reading a 30-page document and so forth, but everybody can be swindled. That's the point.
The bottom line is they were written very convoluted. It's not like I just picked up a document. It's like, oh, I know what's going on here. We had to study this. In fact, it was so crazy. After, matter of fact, I think maybe 2 cases after that, myself and my law partner, my colleague, we actually flew down to Washington and took a intensive class in predatory lending litigation. Because, it's like I tell people, I stay in my lane. I don't do tax law. I mean, I'm an attorney. I don't do tax law, so obviously, if something comes before me that you need an analysis of the tax code, I am not the person for that. And I think that's where people tend to get frustrated, don't understand. Oh, I feel so stupid. Why are you feeling stupid? That's just like saying, You don't know how to do brain surgery.
Right.
Well, that doesn't make you stupid. That
Or
means that's not
concrete
your
work. Right.
That's
What
not
that
your
meant,
that's
right.
not your area.
It's not your skill set.
Now, the
But
only thing I can say is that unfortunately, particularly with people of color, we have a tendency to do things without legal representation, despite it may be the biggest purchase of our life. Go buy a home.
hold on that point. Hold on that point. 1 minute. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Chop It Up with Attorney Linda Bernard, also Police Commissioner Linda Bernard. My guest today is one of the most distinguished lawyers in America. She has testified before the United States Congress on the issue of housing, predatory lending, and she is an advocate in every court in the nation, federal and state. In fact, she's just amazing. Ms. Attorney Vanessa Fluker. You're watching us on YouTube, I guess, right now, probably. YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, and you're watching us at WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt your point about what was really happening with people and housing and real estate.
Right, and if you don't understand or know, and I always go back to that there all kinds of people were affected by the, as they call it, creative financing, aka predatory lending. But seniors were more affected because maybe I'm dating myself, if so, oh well. But back in the day, you went to the bank. If you were approved for a loan, you put a certain amount down for a down payment.
Correct.
You had an interest rate, you had a payment set, and you paid that amount every
for 30
month
years.
for 30 years, and you owned your house.
Correct.
You didn't have interest rates adjusting all over the place. You didn't have to worry about 1 month my payments going from $500 to $1,500. So many people were not even aware of this adjustable rate component. And did they put disclosures in the big, thick closing package? Of course. This is an adjustable rate mortgage. This is an ARM. Please be advised that it may adjust. But if you don't even know what an adjustable rate mortgage is, you really don't know.
Okay.
And of course, they always put that language in there. You have a right to have this reviewed by an attorney. But unfortunately, most people don't do that. Like I said, particularly.
And most attorneys don't know what to look for anyway.
Yeah, and well, you would go get somebody hopefully that does real estate.
Well, you know real estate. I mean,
but most
this
people
woman
don't have an
can
attorney
recite the statutes. It's amazing. She can say MCL 500.281 and give you the exact language of the statute. She's a walking legal encyclopedia. Amazing person. Yeah. Amazing. But you know the law and the statutes in this area. And so you try to protect when people want to buy a house or getting ready to make this kind of investment or do a whatever it is, reverse mortgage, all these new things they've got. They should come and see you and bring that package to you for review.
No, doesn't have to be me, but they need to see someone that works in.
You need to see
area.
her, ladies and gentlemen. Don't get it twisted.
No.
Listen to me.
Because the bottom line is, would all of this be prevented? No, but maybe some of it could have been prevented because people didn't know what those packages were and they were brand new. You are dealing with senior citizens, and senior citizens are a vulnerable population. They're trusting. When people are nice, when people say that they're trying to help them, they believe that. They don't really necessarily start with the premise that, okay, this person is just really trying to set me up to rip me off.
Or to get some money. It's all about, it's a business for them. They want to make what? Money.
Exactly.
And they're going to make that money at your expense.
Right.
Possibly.
Right. So that is one of the things that started catalyzing it. And at the end of the day, of course, kind of a little bit too late as far as even determining the significant percentage of housing that was lost in Detroit. Senator Carl Levin in 2011, he did a Senate investigative report, and Detroit was the city that he used for the predatory lending.
Wow,
and it had,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can go online and pull it up. April of 2011, I think it's the 11th, but I'm not sure on the day.
Just 10 years ago.
Right. If you just put in Senator Carl Levin and Senate Investigative Report, 2011, you will pop up this report. It was over 1,000 exhibits showing that, you have this media propaganda going, well, people bit off more than they could chew. And the stats were showing how African Americans, black people, senior citizens, and other minorities were targeted. And it wasn't that your credit score had to be two. That was another, excuse. Well, people had, low credit or they were a higher credit risk, so they were putting these high risk products. And they found a significant percentage of people that were putting these high risk products had high credit scores, 700
Wow.
above. And they're put in adjustable rate mortgages. Now,
So this was 10 years ago.
yes,
So if we fast forward to now, is that still happening?
not only
Well, let me just ask you: did the government correct its wrongs, or did, like in my case, where you just incidentally, ladies and gentlemen, Vanessa appealed my case, which was a predatory lending case. She appealed it to all the courts in Michigan, then went into federal court, federal district court, then federal circuit court, and filed a brief in the United States Supreme Court. That's how fierce of an advocate she is for just me. I mean, this wasn't a big company or anything like that, and she did it a magnificent job. Her pleading is a roadmap. Any lawyer in the country who is attacking this should pull her pleading in this matter. You'll learn how to do this and how to do it right. She went all the way up, requested certiorari from the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, they denied it, but that was okay because that put her in a position to bargain and to leverage the case because they were spending so much money in legal fees and so forth that it really made a difference. So what she's saying is true. Talk to a lawyer. But don't not any old lawyer. You got to talk to a lawyer who knows this area of the law. And she's not only my lawyer, she speaks on this before the state bar, as I said, before Congress, everything. She's a heck of a litigator. She's the best that I know. So Vanessa Fluker, Fluker, and you can Google her. I mean, she's got a zillion awards. But okay, go back to what's happening now. That was my question.
What's happening now is you still have a lot of these loans out there because they were 30-year mortgages. There was no correction on these loans. Now, there were corrections for the financial institutions. Well, the remedy allegedly for the borrowers, well, okay, you could get a modification, which was the biggest policy fiasco. I said if I ever decided to teach a policy class, that would be my case study because it was just horrible the way it was created and implemented, and it did not benefit the target population. In fact, the stakeholders didn't even really have a legitimate seat at the table as far as standing to be able to sue on so many things. It was only within the past few years that they incorporated some language with the advocacy of the Consumer Finance Protection Agency when now Senator Warren, when she was heading that up, that they actually codified some stuff that you just can't have people paying 850 zillion trial modification payments and turn around and still foreclose on their home. And they were doing that for years. For years, that was a lot of my legal work because people would do all the right things, turn the paperwork. They're like, okay, you're approved for a trial modification under the government policy. After you made 3 timely payments, they're supposed to convert it into a permanent modification. But what they were doing is they would send people out the trial modification where the borrower would sign and send it back to them. The bank would never sign anything and send it back to the borrower. So after they sucked some more money out the people, they would turn around and put it in foreclosure, and their defense was statute of frauds. Well, we don't have a signed agreement modifying the terms. It's only signed on one side. Despite the fact you may have, I had one case where it took like 20-something payments in trial modification payments and said, oh, well, we didn't sign an agreement. And despite the fact there's obviously this over a year of conduct in accepting these payments because of the statute of frauds, they were just getting over like,
I want you to understand, ladies and gentlemen, maybe you've been the victim of this, maybe you haven't, that this was actually a machine. It still is. There were law firms that only did trot and trot, was famous. They'd have hundreds of evictions every day based on mortgage foreclosure. I mean, thousands throughout the state. It was just amazing to me that David Trott could even have been elected to the United States Congress. This firm, there are about 3 firms that did nothing but put Michiganders out of their homes throughout Detroit and throughout the state of Michigan. Am I wrong?
That's true.
How many cases would you estimate they foreclosed on through this process in its heyday?
I have no idea.
I mean, just in Wayne County, for example.
Well, I know in Detroit, I believe it was from 2010. I think it's 2010 to 2014. There were about a little over 200 foreclosures in the city, and they handled the bulk, obviously. So, and like you said, every county you go to had a case in. They had cases in like Berrien County, Benton Harbor, things like that. They were there, but I was amazed. I had a case in Branch County. That's on the border of Indiana. I mean, it's like 4 hours or so away. Branch County, big city, Branch County is Coldwater. They were there, and it's not the fact that they were there. It's like they were there with a stack of evictions, and unfortunately, people.
And by evictions, we're talking about putting people out of homes that they own. This is not rental property. We're gonna come to that in a minute. But this is people who own their homes who are being evicted from the houses that they've had for many, many years, as a result of a huge predatory lending scheme.
Right. And the thing that's so sad about this is because, like I said, my master's is in public policy, and the way you frame an issue, and they call it issue identification in the public policy world. You can frame and identify an issue such that you create a certain political response. And the whole foreclosure issue was framed as one of money, greed, and how should I put it? Misrepresentation by the borrowers.
Right.
When it was actually
as if they had the sophistication to do that.
And it was actually the exact opposite. Now, obviously the money part's involved, but most of these people are getting nothing other than, to try to keep their house, do repairs, maybe like I said, medical bills, something of that nature. But the true money was being made by the people creating the loans, and once they were created and the funded and things of that nature, securitized on Wall Street, they're making the money. Then you have the whole misrepresentation part. Well, they had all these no-doc loans, which was an interesting scenario in itself, which means that in stated income, well, that is controlled by the mortgage and the banking industry. And in many instances, these borrowers, they didn't even know what the heck these people were putting down. Which brings to mind a very interesting case that I had. I knew these people did not complete their application. Their monthly income was about $2,400 a month.
Okay.
They had them down with $18,000 a month. And I'm asking them, where is this money coming from? They're like, what are you talking about? They didn't even know that was put on their application. Many times the loan officers or whoever was creating the documentation, they were putting in the numbers with respect to income, assets, and things of that nature that needed to be put in there to generate the loan product.
Right.
And then we all know how that works out. If you've ever purchased property or been to a closing, they have that big old stack of paper. And they actually have little sign here stickies coming out the side. They don't go through and explain each page. You're flipping that page. I'm gonna need you to sign here. You're gonna love. You're gonna be able to do so much with this money. Initial here. I need you to sign. You're gonna enjoy your new house. Sign here. Sign. I mean, no one's going through explaining this stuff to you. And despite the fact you're supposed to have these packages ahead of time to review or have your attorney review, a lot of times that doesn't even happen. People show up at the closing, they're flipping through documents. Sign here. Sign here. Sign.
That's
here,
correct.
Sign here. And if you don't even know that you're entitled to have to review that or what to review, you wind up in the situation that we have.
What's a review letter?
I said the opportunity to review the document.
Oh, an opportunity to review.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Which brings us to what has been our government's response. Let's infuse some more money into the financial institutions and let the people die.
As
whatever.
opposed to helping the people out.
Exactly.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Chop It Up with Attorney Linda Bernard, your police commissioner here in the city of Detroit. You're watching us on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the nation. You can access us on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube, every social media platform available. And you can access us globally in Paris, in Ghana, in Libya, in Russia. You can see us. So it's a pleasure to see you today. It's a pleasure to be with you. My guest is one of the most distinguished lawyers in the state of Michigan. She's actually a super lawyer in Michigan. Her name is attorney Vanessa Fluker. She is a litigator par excellence, but she is a real estate and housing law guru. And housing issues are preeminent in the city of Detroit and throughout the country right now because of this. I forgot what it's called. It's like an abatement of the eviction moratorium. Let's talk a little bit about what this eviction moratorium means in the city of Detroit and throughout the country. And what do you think really is going to happen with it?
Well, they lifted the moratorium. What's really happening is people are being tossed out of the street, like 40 going north, particularly in Detroit and Wayne County. And what has happened?
Wait a minute. I thought there was moratorium means cease and desist. Yes, you can't do it.
That was lifted about a month or so ago.
So it's no longer in effect.
There's no longer a moratorium in effect. And what's so really sad about that situation, and I'll circle back.
So can you tell people what the process is to put people out just legally, real quick? The date,
well,
the notice. The notice. What is it? How does it work? The landlord has to give you a notice.
Well, yes, there has to be a notice.
Written notice.
A lot of it depends on your rental situation. If there's a lease, notice is determined by what the lease is and things of that nature, and you have an opportunity to cure the default or whatever the case may be. It makes it more difficult to just do because people think, okay, I'm going to court to be evicted. It's different types of complaints under summary proceedings. There's non-payment of rent, and then there's a complaint for possession. I don't want your money. I don't want anything. I just want you to heck up out my property. And we see a lot of that now, so that they can try to also circumvent, adjust, and maybe you should wait for the federal funding, which is a whole nother fiasco right there in Detroit and Wayne County. In suburban areas, the wait time is 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. People have applied for funding in Detroit. They've been waiting since May.
Really?
Landlords are going crazy because they're like, okay, they're just staying in my property free. Well, the bottom line is tenants have no control over that federal funding. But guess what? City and county officials have control over that funding.
So why are they doing something about it?
Well, I call it, let's finish gentrifying out the city personally. Let's get some folks up out of here so we can redo this housing and rent it at a much higher price. Several months ago, which obviously
so you think the reason the government is not helping like they could is to assist gentrification?
Well,
displace indigenous people with people from other places.
You got it. About maybe 2 or 3 months ago, Google search, there was a Wall Street Journal article. And I thought this was interesting because it was in the Wall Street Journal. Now, New York Times also wrote about this issue, about how the rents in Detroit had increased over 1,000%, yet the city was still number 5 in poverty. So,
so the rents in Detroit have increased 1,000%.
Yeah.
But we're still the poorest city and blackest city in America.
We're still one of the poorest cities. So the bottom line is, what are you going to do when you're evicted from a home? You perhaps were in a lease or an arrangement where you're paying, I'm using a hypothetical, you're paying $500 a month, so it's in line with your budget. You get evicted. Now the baseline rent is $1,000 a month. How's that working out for you? Not well at all.
Makes you homeless. You and your children, many women and children.
Exactly.
As a matter of fact, our shelters are on Super Jam now. There's no place for people to go with children. I mean, the shelters are full. Yeah. They can't find any place to live. If you look in the paper, even the rents really start at $800 a month from used to be $500.
Right, and the bottom line is the fastest growing sector of the homeless population is senior citizens. Again, a Google statistical search.
But I'm surprised by that because I thought most seniors could access senior citizen housing. If you're 50 or over, you can stay in.
Well, that's if there's some housing to access.
I'm sorry?
I said that's if there's housing to access. If you go through and look at the number of buildings that were subsidized senior buildings over the past, I say 7 to 8 years that have been conveniently converted to for-profit housing
Oh,
and
really?
gentrified out. Most of these buildings have been sold to billionaire investors or gifted or whatever the case may be. You would be amazed.
Really?
And there's no replacement on that housing. That's just another building or structure, whatever, gone.
I see. So this has been happening, this displacement within Detroit and elsewhere, and you're saying excuse me, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, the eviction moratorium is not really working. People are getting
Well, it's
thrown out
over.
every day.
It's over.
It's over.
Yep. There's a challenge to it. They tried to get an extension.
Pardon me, allergies.
You tried to get.
I've had all 3 shots.
I
I just want you to know.
I'm not drinking with. They tried to get a extension, and they were not able to prevail on that because of the way it was implemented. Which that's a 4-part series right there, because the moratorium was consistently being implemented through the CDC.
Oh,
And
that
then
makes
there
no
was-
sense. The Center for
and-
Disease
right.
Control.
Right, and
Why?
there's obviously was a challenge to that about the ability of their rulemaking capacity to basically create law, and it was basically not renewed on a technical matter. But what the interesting point of that is, you did not see our Congress step up and say, we're creating an emergency bill or moratorium. You did not see our president step up and say, I'm going to create an executive order to continue this moratorium for another 30, 60, 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all. So sometimes when you're looking at these situations and you're doing an analysis, you have to look at, I call it just like you have kind of crimes of commission, you also have those of omission.
Right.
So sometimes you have to look at things that are omitted, not just what was done, but what is omitted. Like people are like, oh my God, they didn't uphold the CDC moratorium. No, they didn't. But by the same token, you didn't have any other sector of the federal government step in and say, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. And you have capacities within states to create moratoriums. And here, the governor did. She was
Plus, they have
challenged.
so much money right now. They're flush with cash. So
And
why
that's
is
a
this
whole nother
problem?
factor that we all have to look at, particularly when you look at the spending differential between different cities and counties. If you take Macomb County, Oakland County, and Wayne County, who has all this money left?
Wayne?
Primarily the city of Detroit.
Right.
And at some point, that money will sunset, and it will be able to be used for something else.
Correct.
So if you're not using it to keep people in their homes,
In the winter.
that
Right.
means that you already have other plans for those funds. And one thing I definitely want to get out here is that you have landlords that are just ballistic because they haven't been played. They're looking at the tenants as the enemy. And they need to be holding hands with these tenants, asking the powers that be, where is our money? The money doesn't go to the tenant. It's paid directly to the landlord.
To the landlord.
The landlord and, utility companies and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And your landlords would think, okay, I have 5 houses or 10 houses, I have it going on. No, you don't. They had started, I don't know, maybe 5 years or so ago, maybe a little longer, securitizing rents. Just like they securitized the mortgages on Wall Street, they're now securitizing rental payments.
Like if you have
And
an
you-
apartment building, all the rents go into a pool.
No, the properties are put in the pool and the income from the rents are securitized. So now you have these huge billion-dollar hedge funds, such as Blackstone, and they have a subdivision called American Life. They don't own 500, houses or apartment buildings. They're like, 30,000 in this state and 30,000 in that state. So it's also a way to divest property from what we would consider to be maybe your mom and pop landlords. Well, if they have a mortgage on their property or something like that, the tenants aren't paying. They're just waiting for that property to go to foreclosure because now they're going to scoop it up, put it into that pot, and you'll see another perspectives on how to invest in the securitized, trust XYZ123. And they're being, like I said, all this is Google
search.
It's a new
scam.
Google search, yeah. So
So if you own an apartment building, you could securitize the rents. What you do that to get money right now? Let's say you want $100,000.
No, that's the investment product on Wall Street. Just like they did with the mortgages, you have the mortgage back pass securitized trust, where they bundled up all those mortgages, put them into a securitized trust scenario,
and Fannie Mae, and then we're letting them do this. I mean, this is part of the game now.
Fannie Mae is, they're part of that process.
Yeah, the game never changed, essentially.
No, right.
It's a new vehicle.
Now they've added another layer. Just like with your predatory land contract, all these wild, bizarre things they're doing, just snatching up people's houses.
Vanessa, I know you're aware of it, but I want our audience to be aware of the fact that I had a property that went into foreclosure that I got out. I mean, what happened is that all the mortgage companies went defunct. And so I've been paying for it for like 7 or 8 years now, 10 years, whatever. Anyway, rental property, nobody, but my family lives there. So, do you know that I got a letter from a company, some sort of bogus company that's just been created in Michigan, that asked me to start paying the loan that was no longer a legal loan, and they say on the very back of the letter it says like the statute of limitations has expired on this debt,
right?
But you should start paying us $2,000 a month or something like that. So they have a new scam. I want you to know. I can send you a copy of the letter where they are sending you. It's like this bill is from a credit agency, one of those, a bill collector.
Right.
This is a memo from a bill collector, and they tell you owe this money. They go back to, let's say, a mortgage $100,000, and they say, well, you owe this $100,000, but you have to and start making these payments to XYZ company. That's and then on the very back it says, we can't legally enforce this loan because it's beyond the period that they could have enforced it.
If you start paying your acquiescence,
that's correct. You are agreeing to it.
You owe that debt.
And within 30 days, you have to send a letter, huge letters. I owe you nothing. Yeah. I challenge this debt. That's all you got to do, and keep a copy of it. But I just want you to know how slick they are now. This is a company out of Southfield sent me this thing. You owe $100,000. I'm like, and I'm reading the thing, and on the very back, last paragraph, this debt is not legally enforceable. It's beyond the time period. I'm like, you just trying to scam people, but ordinary people would think, without reading the whole thing.
I don't want to be in any trouble. I'm going to start. Well, let me try to make some payment arrangements. So
right.
Basically,
right.
You're agreeing to a debt.
A new debt.
Yes.
That you no longer owe.
Yep.
It's just amazing.
Yep.
So I want people to be aware of that. But I also want to talk about what's happening here in Detroit and in Oakland County and Wayne County, with people who are getting people to sign new documents. I need a loan, so instead of going to a friend or a person that I like, you promise me that you'll loan me $50,000, let's say, and so you say, okay, Linda, I'm gonna loan you $50,000, but I want to do it on a land contract or whatever it's called, a land contract or other debt instrument. But before you answer me, because I really want to hear your answer to this, because I know it's a scam, because I remember when someone contacted me about this. They're called hard money lenders, or is that what it's called? Hard money?
You have hard money lenders, some of which are
all people,
up
just ordinary. But before you tell me what a hard money lender is, and I want you to really pay attention to this, ladies and gentlemen, because these people appear to be legitimate. They have an office. They do all kinds of things. They say, we'll loan you the money. We need take your property on and a quick claim deed or whatever on a land contract. I'm sorry, and you can get it back. But anyway, Again, you're watching Chop It Up with Attorney Linda Bernard, Police Commissioner Linda Bernard. My guest today is the very distinguished attorney Vanessa Fluker, who who sends chills through the courtroom when she comes in. She's always prepared. She's always smart, smarter than anyone in the room, and she's a fierce advocate. Having said that, you're watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. I like to say nation, but it's really the world. So I'm always criticized for that. So it's the world, ladies and gentlemen, the world. WJZZ Cool TV. Vanessa, tell us about this new scam that's going on in Detroit and throughout the country. And you say it's even been on TV, but tell us about Detroit, Wayne County, and Oakland County first.
Well, the bottom line is
Tell me what happens.
it's not a new scam. And there was a recent article, news clip on CNBC talking about how Detroit residents, so many of them, are victims of quote unquote landlords, home purchases when people really didn't own the home, extensive payments made on property that goes to different hands, just different layers of predatory lending. And I want to preface this by saying, according to them, they've been looking at this issue for 10 years.
According to the what?
CNBC.
Okay.
They went back 10 years on this issue.
In Detroit.
Yes. Now, in 2019, prior to our little COVID situation, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, who heads up the Financial Services Committee,
She's a friend of mine.
she held hearings here in Detroit on housing. It was a follow up to the 2010 hearings that were held. And it was like 11 years later, where are we at? And Detroit was the first city that she held field hearings in because things had not gotten better, they had gotten worse. And one of their concerns was the predatory land contracts and other modified instruments such as lease with option to buy, rent to own, just all kinds of instruments had developed that had driven people from bad to worse. And first thing I want to emphasize is that a land contract in and of itself is not bad.
No.
You know, it's like money. Money can be used for good, it can be used for evil. You know what I'm saying? However, in fact, the land contracts was probably the only way historically black people own property
That's how my parents got our house.
My parents got their first house. My dad's like 96 now. Back then, you couldn't get a doggone mortgage if you were black.
No, you couldn't.
So you bought property on land contract. So I don't want people to get off on the tangent that, oh my God, all land contracts are bad. No. But you have a whole situation now where people came off this predatory mortgage lending scenario. They've been foreclosed on. They're screwed. Their credit score is 2. They have no remedy and no recourse because the government entered into this $25 billion settlement with the banks, and everybody's running around like this is wonderful. Well, you have 5 freaking banks.
$25
Then they
billion.
paid $5 billion a piece.
Right.
That's nothing. It's a drop in the bucket compared to their worth and compared to the amount of money they ripped off of people, and certainly compared to any recovery. Because after that $25 billion settlement, people were being sent checks for like $500, $750. Now, me personally, that's an insult. I've lost my house. My credit score is 2. And you're sending me a check for $500, and I'm just supposed to be ecstatic. And the biggest component is in that agreement, all rights to prosecute them criminally are waived. So despite the fact, out of that independent review by the government,
It's criminal enterprise. This is a criminal enterprise.
It was determined that there was fraudulent activity. You can never go after them because they paid $5 billion to get a pass, in essence. So once again, it goes back to that framing the issue, the propaganda thing. I say that because that's what drove so many people to need another alternative way to finance housing, especially in light of the fact that your ability to rent property is tied to your credit score. You have a foreclosure, and if you have a foreclosure, you also have an eviction. Because after your property is foreclosed, if it's not redeemed, if you're not successful in some type of legal action, the next step is eviction. So you have a foreclosure on your credit, you have an eviction judgment on your credit. You can't even rent any place decent unless you're paying a zillion bucks. And sometimes they just don't want you to rent, period, because they're just looking at your credit score and the judgments and things of that nature. Okay. So now you created this environment where unscrupulous individuals can take advantage to the max, be it the predatory land contracts, be it lease with option to buy, and you can never exercise that option, and they're just treating you like a doggone tenant, despite the fact it could have been your house. And you say, okay, I agree to sell you my house for, whatever outstanding debt you may owe. Maybe it's taxes, maybe it's mortgage, or whatever the case may be, thinking, I'm going to pay this off and I get my house back. But what happens is you never get to pay that off, and you're not getting your house back.
They keep moving the goal line.
Moving the goal line, or matter of fact, how about removing the goal line? Oh, well, you really should exercise that option 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever. Or there's some other nefarious breach within this contract because it's leased with option to buy, and most times in those options, the option is effective if there's no other breach in the other terms. Oh, you were late twice in 2 years, so you don't get through that option. I've taken all your money. Now I have equity in your home, and I'm just going to throw you out. The conduct is just over the top, outrageous. And as the article by CNBC, Google search, this is just like maybe 2 or 3 days ago, said that the thing that's so amazing is that the people who are engaging in this conduct, they're never brought to justice. The only
brought to justice.
The only people that are suffering is the people who are scrimping and scraping, trying to have a decent place to live, and paying a ton of money to try to do it. And that is a problem. And our legal system is, I guess the best term I can think of, an enabler, because they're not trying to stop these people. Like, well, there was a contract signed, or, whatever the case may be. It's just surreal that no one's really addressing the injustices that are going on. And the reason I keep going back to the CNBC article is because I'm like, if a national news agency can look at this information and see this pattern over the past 10 years and how outrageous it is, how is it
our elected officials?
Yes.
Where's our governor? Where's our attorney general? Where's
our
city council?
People?
Where's our mayor on this issue?
Exactly.
It's what you're saying.
Exactly.
Because it's a national fact and a national disgrace.
Yeah.
And by not doing anything, we become complicit in it.
Exactly.
So once they're in so there's certain people that do a lot of this, correct? There's certain companies or whatever that own lots of properties.
Yes.
So they buy the property, then they tell people to lease to own, and then if you're late on a payment or something, that's a default under that contract, and then you could never own.
Right.
Even if there's a provision in it that says that you pay the I know we gotta go. Even that you pay a late fee. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is attorney, the distinguished Vanessa Fluker. She's been my guest today. You can reach her. She's on every doggone social media platform, and of course, what's your website name? Or your email?
VGF Lawyer.
VGF for Vanessa G. Fluker Lawyer. .com or
at sbcglobal.net.
At sbcglobal.net.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today on Chop It Up with Attorney Linda Bernard. I thank you very much, Attorney Fluker, for joining us. Again, you can watch us on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter and every other social media platform in the world. You're watching us on Wjzz Cool TV, the coolest station in the nation and the world. The nation and the world. I got to get that right. Thanks again, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure to be with you. He's laughing at me now. He's laughing at us.